Howdy y'all, hot feels summer. I decided to keep a little bit of a travelogue. I'm in Vietnam right now. I'm in Saigon at the moment. I've been here about a week. I recorded a few videos, but I had a big booger right there, and so we're starting over. This is a special kind of trip. I've traveled Vietnam extensively before. I rode a bicycle from Bangkok to Saigon and then up to Hanoi. So I've traveled about 1,800 miles on bicycle in Vietnam, and I learned a lot of language in every country. I learned a couple hundred words of Khmer, which is atonal. That was nice. Very little Thai because the Thai speak English. And if you try to learn Thai, they just think you're saying English words they don't know. So that's a challenging one to learn, even in the rural areas. Vietnamese is a lovely language. And in the countryside, nobody really spoke English. So it was advantageous to learn quite a bit, and I did. But my pronunciation was pretty bad back then. I would just have to repeat myself and give context until people understood me. So I decided to come back and learn some Vietnamese. I've had a teacher for about a month now. Toi ca mo ko yao mo tan roy. I've had a teacher for about a month now. And so I'm here learning, and I'm really just kind of settling down in a city for weeks at a time before I move on. My hotelier said that I was boring, and I think that was a mistranslation, but he's not wrong. I'm staying in my hotel and I'm working, and I'm walking around the neighborhood talking to people. Been here about a week, as I said, and it's about to be Tet, Lunar New Year. You don't terribly want to be a tourist in Vietnam during Lunar New Year because the whole city kind of shuts down. It's like Christmas on steroids. It's 5 days of businesses closed. And the week before and the week after, everything is crazy busy. Right now, I'm kind of stuck in this hotel. I wanted to move to a different part of the town, but it was getting really challenging to find hotels that would accept bookings. So I hunkered down in District 1. District 1 is the tourist area. It's not the most authentic of experiences, but since I know Vietnamese, I'm getting to know people okay, and I'm having a good time. Again, I'm going to Thailand for a few weeks to escape Tet. And then I'll be back. I'm a little frustrated to be leaving because I'm learning so much language so fast, but I think taking a step back might be just the thing at this phase. And I love Bangkok. I love Bangkok so much that I keep trying to convince myself to go to the beach down south or to go up north into the mountains, to go to Chiang Mai, which is obviously really lovely, but I'm an urban tourist. I love cities, big cities. So I'm going to try to talk myself into taking the train to Chiang Mai, but no promises. So I want to talk a little bit about what it's like here, what you might not know. I'm just here to live my life. I want you to know that the neighborhoods are so dense that if there's a cafe on my block I want to find again, I'm going to have trouble, even though I know it's on my block. You have no idea how much that narrows things down. Almost every house has a garage underneath it with a business running, whether it's a restaurant, or they're just selling Nước Mía, sugarcane juice, Nước Dừa, I think it's Dừa, coconut water out front. They're selling something in front of their house. They might have a cafe in their garage. They might just have a cart. It's not as common to go out to a club as it is to go to a restaurant, which is bumping music, and you sit out on the sidewalk with your friends and you pound some, I don't know what they drink. I don't really drink. Tigers? I haven't paid attention. And you pound some tigers and you chill out with your friends while the music is way too loud for a sit-down restaurant to my American sensibilities. And just, I don't really drink. I spend all day talking to Vietnamese people. I should break into the night scene and see how it is, but I don't know if everyone being drunk is really going to help things. One other thing I want to mention is just noise and traffic and generally being in the way. There seems to be almost no self-consciousness about the noise you make or how in the way you are. If I'm walking down the street, a motorbike will just pull in and park 2 feet in front of me. And it's not rude is all I can assume because that's just how it is. They're not just doing it to me, they're doing it to grandma too. There just seems to be very little self-consciousness about being in the way. They fill the sidewalks completely with tables and chairs and motorbikes. Clearly that's a cultural expectation I have that isn't met here. And noise. There are people whose motorbike honks automatically. Honk, 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 and that makes them feel safe. And apparently it's not a dick move, for all I can tell. Sometimes I sit down and someone wants to impress me, so they boot up the karaoke machine 9, 10 p.m. at night right outside someone's house, and they just crank the karaoke and start singing. The dude I'm thinking about had some pipes, so I don't really blame him. Pretty good. Hanging out on the sidewalk. I want to talk about my arrival experience. My flight was about 34 hours. I assume you've all flown before. I'm not going to cover that. It sucked. I booked the airport hotel that first night. Crazy expensive for Vietnam. I think it was like $80. I'll never spend anywhere near that for the rest of the trip. But I was arriving after midnight. I thought it was worth it. And that was proven true because the town is pretty full for the Lunar New Year right now. I was walking around, go to the hotels I planned on, full. Go to hotels that look like they suck, full. What I ended up doing was I found a really bad hotel and I set my bag down in there. And then I started walking around the area of Bui Vien, and I didn't realize how loud it was going to be. I didn't realize that was basically Khao San Road. And I was like, I cannot stay here. So I took advantage of the fact that my bag was in the lobby, and I went and found a hotel. Because man, you're so desperate when you got your bag. You can't be walking around looking at 10 different hotels. So I found one. I went back and canceled my first hotel. Felt pretty bad. They're not going to have trouble filling it up though. It's high season. It's high season for internal tours in particular. Most external tourists are trying to get out of Vietnam right now. You don't want to be in Vietnam during Tet as a tourist. If you can secure yourself a spot in a tourist-heavy area like Da Lat or even Bui Vien, you'll be okay. Today, I walked 2 miles trying to find a banh mi. So things are getting tough. People are going back to the villages to spend time with family. Things are getting tough. I just got to remember to go to Bui Vien Street in the future because that won't ever shut down. So I am in District 1, but I'm a little bit off the beaten path, a little bit to the south, and to me that's where you want to be. When you're traveling in Vietnam, you want to choose the neighborhood, and then you want to go down alleys until you find your hotel. You know, especially if you're trying to save money, but also if you're just looking for a better spot, you're going to find a better guest house down an alley. If you're looking for a hotel, that's a whole different matter. I don't really stay in hotels. I stay in guest houses. Same, but different. A guest house, sometimes they'll shut the doors at night. This one's 24 hours, so that's nice. But that's the biggest risk you get with a guest house is some of them will shut the doors at night and then you're banging on the gates. Again, I recorded this video when I first got here in booger time. This is not booger time. Okay, I got one more story. I tried to go out dancing, and that's just not the kind of city this is as far as I can tell. You go to a bar that's bumping music, and there are paid dancers, but there's not really a dance floor. When I say it's no Khao San Road, it's because the nightlife does not live up to our Western standards. The music is loud. There are paid dancers, and you're sitting there in a chair on the sidewalk drinking a beer. Barely able to talk to your friends. You might enjoy it if you show up with friends. As a solo traveler, I have no interest in Bui Vien. You'll see me directing my tones. But I found a gay club nearby that had the tiniest dance floor. And that was a good time. You couldn't really get down because it was slammed, but there was a drag show. And just general great vibes, and I really enjoyed that. And it was a lot closer to a dance club than I found elsewhere. So that was a good night. I haven't really tried to do that again. I'll save it for Bangkok. I think Bangkok's nightlife fits my expectations a lot more, so I can save it. So I went south of there, and I found a little bit more of an authentic neighborhood, but I do have to admit the charm is wearing off. I'm still in District 1. They still want my money. They loved me because I'm learning the language. But now we're running out of things to talk about, right? They're not as excited to see me. I'm starting to wander farther afield so I can find people who are excited to speak to me in Vietnamese because, like I said, the charm is wearing off. But it's Tet, and one does not simply get a new hotel in Tet. I'm hunkering down until I can leave town on Monday and go to Bangkok. I wish my flight was tomorrow. Flights were scarce. It's gonna be okay. The week before Tet, everyone from the villages is coming into town. Something about like New Year's resolutions and trying to start their year off right. The week after Tet is the same. The city fills up. The week of Tet, apparently the city empties out because everyone's going back to the villages. That's as best I understand it. I'm getting out of here and trying not to understand it much more because it's already starting to be not ideal for a tourist. Then there's Bintan. Bintan is just to the northeast. It's probably still in District 1. I'm not 100% sure. But it's where you're going to find the palaces. It's where you're going to find the museums. Pretty sure Japantown's over there. It's where a lot of the government buildings are. So I walked around Independence Palace. I didn't pay to go inside. Maybe I will. But I was mostly just content to walk the area. There's Book Street over there, which is mostly just for taking pictures. I use a Kindle. I don't need to buy any books. But it's like a whole little walkable street full of bookstores. It's super cute. I went to the War Remnants Museum. It's a must-see, though it's not an easy trip. When you arrive outside, they got some super sweet old American military gear. You're going to be looking at some howitzers. You're going to be looking at some F-5As, old fighter jets, Huey helicopters. So you come in and you're like, this is freaking awesome. And then you step inside and you need to do that because America did this to this country. It wasn't just us, but it was us. And basically get ready to cry. I mean, you know, you'll cope the way you cope. Some people are laughing. That's nervous laughter. I know they don't, you know. We all handle our grief differently. You will grieve inside the War Remnants Museum, and it deserves it. I was sobbing openly. I don't think I was the only one, but you know, we were hiding in the corner when we did so. So definitely go to the War Remnants Museum, but just know what you're going to. You can see, even now. I went to Guitar Street. Guitar Street is really great. It's just a whole street where there's going to be about 10 luthiers. I bought my mandolin there 10 years ago on my bike tour. About halfway through my bike tour, I was sick of not having strings. I didn't really know how to play mandolin. I knew a couple chords, like 3 or 4. And I grabbed one. And you get a pretty fine instrument there. I think I paid $120, and I don't think you'd find a mandolin like I had for under $1,000 in the U.S. You could fly to Vietnam and buy a guitar and fly home with it and get a better instrument for cheaper, including the flights and your stay here. The guitar I just bought for $250 is, I'd say it's Martin Custom quality. Right, it's handmade by a guy who's been making guitars for 19 years. And the currency here is just, basically, here's my tip. If you want some crazy inlays, you'll want to come here. But if you want a really fine instrument, you'll want to come here and buy one that doesn't have inlays. Because they're not skimping on the wood quality. They're not skimping on the sound design. They're making a fine instrument, and they're charging a lot less because they didn't spend hundreds of hours on the inlays. If you want dolphins, if you want flowers, if you want dragons, they got you. You'll probably be spending $1,000. And if you just want nice binding around the outside edges, you'll probably be creeping up into the $500 range. If you come here and you get the simplest bindings and inlays, you're gonna walk out. I think I paid $185 for this guitar, and I paid like $120 for my mandolin. Both outstanding quality. And another day I went to Cholan? Went to the Chinatown. It means big market, Cholan. I went there. It was mostly a bad neighborhood. Maybe I went to the wrong parts. But that day I walked probably 10 miles, and I really enjoyed the overall walk. But there were, for the first time in Saigon, streets I turned around and decided I'm not going to walk down that street. I'm not saying it was dangerous. I'm saying my city sense kicked in, and I turned around several times in that neighborhood. The plight of the immigrants. And it's currently being decorated for Lunar New Year, so Lantern Street didn't have any lanterns. I assume they took them all down and were putting up new ones for the festivities. My habits here are mostly just walking 5 or 10 kilometers a day exploring a different part of the city. I've explored Bintan pretty thoroughly. I've explored District 1 pretty significantly. I've given District 4 a ponder, a little walk. That's one of the smaller districts, and there seems to be a really good mix of expats and locals. Not just District 1, you can have some authentic experiences, but at the end of the day, they're pretty practiced at getting foreigners money. And then in the evenings, I've been working. I am working remotely on a tourist visa in Vietnam. You can't work for a local company. That's how it's phrased. You cannot work for a Vietnamese company. The words are quite specific. You can kind of tell what sort of immigration and tourism they want by the types of visas a country has. Vietnam's visas all seem to be pretty targeted at people who are integrating into society. If you work 10 hours a week for a local company, you can get a long-term residence card. If you are a student studying at a university here, you get a long-term residence card. So I'm loving learning Vietnamese. I could come and go to a Vietnamese school and just be good to stay here as long as I was in school. They want people who are integrating. Will they want digital nomads? I don't know. Digital nomads are a little bit apart. There are definitely some retirees, but most of them are going to be marrying or starting a business, which is integrating. So I think it's cool how you can just kind of see the values of the country through their immigration. So yeah, I'm working the evenings to be closer to my normal work times, and to be able to reply to some messages. I have had a couple meetings late at night. I had a 1 a.m. meeting and I had a 3 a.m. meeting last night. That sucks, but I really don't have all that many meetings. I have 2 or 3 a week. I can tolerate this. Let me talk a little bit about weird food. I've been trying to eat the weirdest food I can find, but I haven't really been succeeding. I'm keeping my eyes open for crickets. No luck so far. I went to a restaurant that I thought was a cricket restaurant, but I think I had one of the tones wrong. So instead I got snakehead fish. It looks weird, but it was just an incredible tasting fish. It wasn't weird at all. Probably my favorite meal so far. I did get frog hot pot. I've had frog before. I'm from East Texas. I grew up in almost Louisiana. I've definitely had frog before, but in that area they deep fry all the weird food. They'll deep fry the alligator, they'll deep fry the frog. You get a little taste of it, but it's covered up too. Frog, it tastes like chicken, right? But it tastes like really greasy chicken that leaves a greasy taste in the back of your throat until further notice. I was really wishing I had mouthwash last night. I loved the meal. But like 3 hours later, I was contemplating, do I go buy mouthwash that I'm going to throw away in 3 days? And brushed my teeth like 4 times and got over it. Last time I traveled here, I was in the Mekong Delta. I did try rat. You don't want to eat urban rats, but in the countryside, it can be quite safe in the rice field. It was pretty tasty, tasted like chicken. In fact, I didn't know it was rat. It was rotisserie, and I just said, cha toi mo, give me one. And I was eating it, and nothing jumped out at me. And then I got to the leg, and it was not a chicken leg. I was like, that's a small little leg. And I walked back to the rotisserie, and I kind of realized I was eating rat. We did some Googling. Sure enough, that's a delicacy in the area. I believe I was in Canton. I might have been in Long Suyen. I don't know the tones on those cities. I haven't been there since I learned the alphabet and all that. And then I had fertilized egg. I want to say in the middle of the country. Maybe it was in Da Nang that I had fertilized egg. I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to give a periodic update on my Vietnamese in each video because I think it'll be fun to look back at. I got to emphasize this is not instruction. I'm learning. This is my first check-in. Hopefully this will be the wrongest I'll ever be because I think in 3 months I should be able to get some pretty basic functionality going. I already am able to have a lot of fun walking around talking to locals. So the language is obviously really difficult to pronounce for English speakers with the tones, and there's new consonants and there's new vowels, and vowels and consonants don't combine in the ways we're used to in English, so it's really tough to pronounce, but the vocabulary, in my opinion, is fairly easy. There's a system of classifiers for nouns that make it really easy to take one word you learn and expand that to learn others. Probably the first word I learned in any language is bicycle. So I'm going to start with se. Sedap is bicycle. Se is the classifier for wheeled things. So once I learned sedap, it was pretty easy to learn motorbike. Semai. And then it was pretty easy to learn bus. Seboy. And then finally, sehoy is car. And this might be obvious to you in your daily life. You've heard of banh mi. Well, now if you want to get a pastry, those will typically be called banh kim, which means bread cream, literally. But I think it kind of translates as pastry. I think it makes it pretty easy to grow your vocabulary. You can grab one word, one concept, and expand it from there. Next, there's no conjugation. You modify the sentence. So if I want to say I've been doing something 10 years, Toi di sedap mui nam roy. That means I've been riding my bicycle for 10 years, I believe. Which, I don't know how exactly they would accept that. But I told someone I haven't smoked in a long time. I didn't know how to say smoke, but I said, Toi Kong pointed at it, Moi Nam Roy. And that was enough to tell him I haven't smoked in 10 years. You don't have to modify words for past tense, present tense, etc. So Roy was the first past tense word I learned. You can also say that. This happened before. Toi da di sedap moi nam Roy. I did ride my bicycle 10 years already. That's wrong. Toi da di sedap moi nam truck is how I would say I rode my bicycle 10 years ago. Or 10 years before is kind of how it literally translates. But it's a better way. If I said Roy, they would assume I've been riding my bicycle for 10 years. They'd probably figure out that's not exactly what I meant. So that lets me put it in past tense. If I want to say I will ride my bicycle, I would say Toi said di sedap. And that's I will ride my bicycle. If I want to say I am riding my bicycle, Toi dang di sedap. So those are the things I really enjoy about the language that make it, in my opinion, easier than English. Now let's get to the things that make it harder than English. Ooh, and while I'm at it, I actually think the number of words in Vietnamese is innumerable. I think there's a fixed number of syllables you can pronounce, and it's a monosyllabic language. So it's that system of combining classifiers that allow you to expand that vocabulary beyond X number of syllables that are pronounceable. So as far as I can tell, the number of words is innumerable. We can count them all and we can combine them in different ways. Let's get to some alphabet. Some of the consonants have changed, but the hardest thing is the vowels. We have 3 A's. We got a, and We got 3 O's. A, O, A, O, So going back to A, and then the O's, A, O, And then we have 2 U's. The with no cap, it's oo, and then the modified with the accent mark, it's That's one of the hardest to pronounce in a sentence. Oh, I didn't do the E's. The E's are the hardest. E with no accent mark is E. E with an accent mark is E. And you really focus on how you shape your mouth. So the tones, we got 5 tones. Yo sak, kong yo hoyin, which is the falling tone. And then you have yo hoi, which is the low creaking tone, I believe. Yo hoi. Then you have yo na, that's also a creaky tone. Yo na. I was using that with se and da. And then you have yo neng, which is the easiest one for me. You just cut it off with your throat. It's short, it's deep, and you cut it off with your throat. So that's spelled N-A-N-G, neng. The system of classifiers, though, makes it much easier for them to understand you when you butcher a word, because it gives them a little context. If I was just saying hoi versus hoi, that's screwing up big time. Those are the tones I'm not that great at pronouncing. People are starting to compliment it and say I'm doing pretty good. So I walk up and say, Xin loi, tôi học tiếng Việt. And that primes their brain to listen to me from then on. Most of them will enjoy it, not all of them. I'm just going to go through and say some of the sentences I've been using lately as my progress check. I've had a teacher for a month already. Tôi ca ko yao một tháng rồi. So I know a little Vietnamese. Tôi biết một chút tiếng Việt. I always sound pretty comical when I say một chút, but nobody seems to mind. I am learning Vietnamese. Tôi đang học tiếng Việt. I wish I could say tiếng Việt more naturally. We'll get there. I'm really enjoying being able to pronounce how do you say finally. Kai ne noi sao is what do you call this thing as I walk around town? I can walk up to a security guard and say Xin loi, Kai ne noi sao, and point at the sign or point at an object, and they'll be able to help me pronounce it or learn the word. That's been huge. My name is Phil. Tân Kua Toi Phil. I am Phil was even simpler. That was my name is Phil. Like I'm practicing the possessive word, Kua. I am Phil is a lot easier. Toi la Phil, much easier. I am American. Ooh, this is tough. They don't call the countries what we call it. In the rural areas, they don't necessarily know the word America or USA. So, Nook, me. Nook is the word for water, and it has a parallel meaning of country, which I think is kind of beautiful. I'm not sure if that's how they view it, but it strikes me as the water is the home. Toi la noi, me, means I am an American. Noi is the classifier for person. Okay, it's Duck. This is my guitar. Dai la guitar kua toi this is my guitar. I'm using Dai to introduce something. I can say nice to meet you. That's been very friendly, though they always kind of laugh at me because I'm not very smooth at it, but Ruk Void Duk Gat Ban is how you say, very nice to meet you, friend. I ride my bicycle from Bangkok to Hanoi. That's one of my favorites. Toi Dat Di Sedap to Bangkok, Din Saigon, Din Hanoi. Truc. I came to Vietnam 10 years ago as Toi Dat Di Vietnam. Moi Nam Ro Truc. Nam is different from Nam. It's not even a tone, it's just a different vowel. Nam. I rode my bicycle 5,000 kilometers. Tôi đã đi xe đạp 5,000 kilometers. And then I can say truc to say before. Finally, I'll go through some numbers. Một, hai, ba, bốn, năm, sáu, bảy, tám, chín, mười, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So you drop the tone on moi, which means 10. You drop the tone on 10 once you get to 20, 30, etc. I think it just makes longer numbers more discernible by dropping that vowel, that tone. That's how I understand it. Also, moat is the guttural tone, like moat. Cut it off with your throat. Whenever you get to 21 or 11, it's now a rising tone. Again, I assume it's used for clarity. I don't really know, but hai moi moat is 21. I'm not going to count much higher. Mot cham is 100. Mot nyen is 1,000. And I think mot chiu is 1 million. And I'm mostly able to do bao niu tien. Ba moi nyen. What is the price? And they usually will hand me a receipt or say it in English, and I say, ba moi nyen, 30,000 dong. I don't say dong. All right, so that is my language. That's my first language update. I've been here about a week. I have been taking lessons for 5 weeks. So that's my first 10-ish days in Vietnam. That's my progress on the language, my progress exploring the city, and just generally what I'm doing here and how I'm spending my time. So this is hot-filled summer. It's not winter anymore because I'm in Vietnam.
Lại mắt đôi cứ lúc xem trong tâm trí anh